Glad to be back. Let's get our life together. All right. Okay. Hope you've been having a fantastic week so far. It's been pretty good for me. I can't complain, really. A little busy. Glad to be back home. Tuesday we were somewhere else. We had a freestyle show, so we ain't even. I guess we did kind of talk about emotional intelligence and recognizing the opportunities that life gives us to assess ourselves and things like that. So it's pretty good. Why does Facebook look so dark? No, we won't worry about it. Gonna get it going. Today we are on. Ironically, we finished the heart last week, so we're gonna do a little solar plexus work. One of my favorite. Within the next couple of weeks, maybe by next episode. I don't know. Not by next episode, but next couple of weeks, I'm gonna add at least another bowl. I don't know if I want to do the heart or the sacral, but I'm thinking the sacral. My spirit said sacral, even though I've been planning on the heart. But we're on the solar plexus. The color for that is yellow. The element for that is fire. We are going to do what we normally do, our breathing exercise. We're going to do the bowl and our visualization with fire. We're probably going to do the bridge one again. I really did like that. I ain't even going to lie, especially when it comes to fire. All right. I'm the Sigma. I appreciate you. Appreciate the love, y'all. Thanks for joining. Tonight is book club. If you got other time on Tuesday nights, we do energy readings. It's kind of a variety show on Tuesday nights, but we do energy readings, and ultimately it's all about healing and the process of healing. We're actually talking about emotional intelligence right now, but we've talked about a bunch of things. So, but I appreciate the love for sure. Then after we do all that, we are going to continue reading Makes Me Wanna Holler, and we are at the point where him and his friends got caught and arrested for what did they rob? They tried to rob a grocery store or something like that. They did something. They was just wilding out, and he just got out on bond, so we're gonna do that. But first, let's start with the bowl, like we always do, family. Oh man, it looks like it's gonna rain here, which is wild. I learned to enjoy the rain. Washes us anew, cools us all those good things after living in a place that snowed all the time. All right, family. Yeah, I was saying because I know you couldn't hear me. That thing was loud, but it'll be all right if I stay inside this weekend. I really do need to show. I said I need to show your brother some love and give him a new pot because he is tired of that pot he is in. He been in it for a minute, so and a couple of other babies need a little love too, so we can do that. And since you here, we'll do your favorite breathing exercise whenever I ask. We'll do 444. I love 444 too, so I'm not even gonna hate. So if you are new and what's going on? Hold on. Let me untighten it. All right, hold on, family. All right, sorry about that. He kept leaning all weird, so I knew something was going on. But like I said, we going. Oh, word! It's been a year now. Wow. No wonder I see his roots growing out the bottom. He was already too big for the pot he was in. And Lord, listen, he gonna show out when I put him in a new pot. I don't know if I want to give him a big one where he got space or um I think I might give him a medium one so I can show him some love again in a little bit. But like I said, we're gonna do your favorite breathing exercise 444. If you are new here, that is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, and you breathe out for 4 seconds. We'll do that 3 times. And then after that, we'll do our visualization. I'll keep the count for you so you don't have to worry about that. Hopefully you are in a comfortable position or someplace that you feel safe and where you can relax and just focus on your breathing and your thought process and just thinking about as you breathe in, you're taking a good deep breath, fill your lungs as much as you can, and then release all that energy. Thank you for the rose. I need that to pop across screen. The alert box. That's what it's called, an alert box. So when you do stuff like that, it's supposed to show up on the screen. Um, I've only seen Twitch show up, but I appreciate it. Thanks for joining, Crystal. I appreciate you. So 444, breathe in 4, hold 4, out 4. On my count of 3, I'll start the count. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. For our visualization, if you've been with us for a while, we've done, especially with fire, we use very different type of visualization. But if you've been with us for a while, you might remember the bridge visualization. One of my favorite sayings, and will always be one of my favorite sayings, is may the bridges I burn light my way. So it's kind of under that idea. But I want you to imagine yourself on one side of a bridge. This bridge can be any kind of bridge. As a matter of fact, make it a wood bridge. Any type of wood bridge that you can think of, whatever your heart desires. It can be a covered bridge. It can be a one lane bridge, but make it fairly sturdy and safe. Do not make it look rickety. Make it look like something that several cars could drive across at the same time. But you are standing on one side of the bridge. And on the side of the bridge that you are standing on, you can feel the stress of the day. You can feel the worries of society. You can feel confusion. You can feel overwhelmed. You feel a lot of emotions that you know within your spirit that you want to let go. And I want you to make sure you dig deep into yourself and gather all of those negative emotions that you are feeling right now. And as you look across that bridge, you see peacefulness. You see safety. You see love. You see your new, happy, and healed self. You see clarity. You see direction. You see vision right there just on the other side of that bridge. And as you are looking at that, I want you to begin to get a thirst and a taste to walk across that bridge. And you take one foot and put it in front of the other, and you walk across that bridge, leaving all of those negative emotions behind, all that worry, all that concern, all that fear, all that lack of trust. You leave it. With every step, you feel it leaving you. And you are walking into your fulfillment and your happiness. Now, you're on the other side of that bridge, and you look back across from where you just left, and you see all of those things that you no longer want to carry forward with you on the other side of that bridge. And I want you to imagine you have something in your hand, a torch. It can be a flamethrower, anything that you can think of, as small as a lighter. But I want you to see yourself setting that wooden bridge on fire and leaving all of that stuff behind with no way to ever go back. Right? And I want you to feel the release of those emotions no longer affecting your life. And as you sit there and you enjoy your peacefulness, your comfort, your love, your direction, your vision, I want you to repeat after me. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. I honor myself. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. And I honor myself. All right, so sacral, I guess I should have told you too. Solar plexus is good for emotions. So those affirmations will help you. Solar plexus is good for emotions. So those affirmations will help you balance your emotions. It's good for self-esteem. It's good for helping to balance your ego out. So that's what those affirmations are for. and the solar plexus reside right here in your stomach. So I say it all the time. I am a solar plexus thinker. I'm emotional. I make a lot of gut based decisions. If it don't feel good to my stomach, then I don't do it. So we're gonna get back into this book. I guess we're getting a little excited. We're gonna see about how it goes for him as he goes to jail. Doo-doo-doo. Got to tell you, Liberty, next week I will be in town. So I wound up having to cancel my Memphis trip. So I am here. Something with the client, not with me, not by choice, because I was ready to go. So I will be in town next week. So we will be doing the show from the studio. So I look forward to that too, since we were out of town last week. All that talk. All right, family. We're gonna get this party started. The bus made a paper with a picture of a getaway car. My mother told me that a neighbor, seeing the photo in the paper, called the house to ask if the person identified in the photo caption was me. My parents didn't have the funds for a great lawyer this time. The best they could afford was some white poop butt dude. I could spot his kind a mile away. They get paid thousands of dollars or so to usher you up before a judge and try to make sure you don't get screwed too bad. They're great actors. They listen to your side of the story like they're really concerned. Then, after they let you blow off steam, they start coaching you on how to throw yourself on the mercy of the court. Like Nutbrain and Charlie Gregg, I pleaded innocent during the preliminary hearing and asked for a jury trial, but my lawyer warned, you don't want to take the judge through a jury trial. We've got no defense. It'll only piss him off, and we don't want to piss off the judge. Get that what they call that trial tax. We canceled the jury request, but I kept my innocent plea. Weeks later, I gave in and changed my plea to guilty. After reviewing the scene, after reviewing the case, my lawyer said that given the strength of the evidence against me, I'd come out with a lighter sentence if we did it that way. My guess, he said, is that you'll get some time, but it won't be much. Given my background and record, he predicted the judge would give me 5 year sentence at most. That meant I'd be eligible for parole after 15 months. I thought maybe my lawyer had worked a deal like the attorney I had when I shot Plas. I figured I could do 15 months standing on my head. I needed at least that much time to dry out and clear my mind. On April 11th, 1975, the court date, I was accompanied to court by Reverend Ellis from Norfolk State, my parents, and Liz. As I moved to join my lawyer at the defense table, Reverend Ellis gave me a biblical verse to recite to myself. It was taken from the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. I still remember it. Everything works together for the good of those who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. It turned out to be a very short hearing. Witnesses were there who could recount the robbery if called upon. The McDonald's manager and a couple of employees were also there. The judge, an old white man, called out my name and launched into that official jargon they use in court. Nathan McCall is brought before the Commonwealth of Virginia on a charge of armed robbery committed on December 4th, 1974. How shall you plead? At the prompting of my lawyer, I stood up, put my hands behind my back, and repeated my guilty plea. Without looking at me, the judge, sitting up high on his bench in his black robe, leafed through a file folder on his bench. Then he lifted his head and called me up front. Do you have anything to say for yourself before I announce sentencing? Something about the tone and the nature of that question let me know it's going to be a bad day. I scrambled in my head to try to come up with something that might sway the man. I sensed that if I didn't come up with a hell of a rap, he was going to lay on some heavy time on me. But it was impossible to say all that was weighing on my heart. I felt choked up inside. as if all the emotions and words had converged on my throat at once and gotten bottled up. Standing there, looking solemn, I mumbled some bullshit about being sorry for committing the crime, then hated myself for even giving in to that feeble, embarrassing try. After he was sure I finished, he said, "Anything else?" I shook my head and glanced at my lawyer, hoping he'd come in and help me out. The lawyer came up, stood beside me, and ran off a rap that was even weaker than mine. The judge nodded at the lawyer, then looked at me and said, "I sentence you to serve 12 years in prison." The words echoed in my head, 12 years? I felt faint, like the room was willing about me. I heard screams in the back of the court from my mother and Liz, but was too weak to look behind me with more than a fleeting glance. I looked at my lawyer, who stepped forward and pleaded with the judge, "Your Honor, please take into account the fact that this young man comes from a decent home and has never served prison time before." The judge was unmoved. "I'm sorry, but he has to learn that he can't go around putting guns to people's heads." He brought down the gavel. "The sentence stands." I stood there, stunned, the scene surreal. A bailiff walked up behind me and clamped the handcuffs onto my wrist. I glanced at my family in the rear of the courtroom. Their faces revealed their shock. A tearful Liz held her hands to her face in disbelief. My sobbing mother buried her face in my stepfather's chest, and Reverend Ellis stared blankly at the floor. When the bailiffs led me from the courtroom, I dropped my head to conceal my misty eyes. Part 2. Chapter 17, Denial. Black men born in the U.S. are fortunate enough to live past the age of 15, are conditioned to accept the inevitability of prison. For most of us, it simply is just the next phase in the sequence of humiliations. Being born a slave in captive society and never experiencing any objective basis for expectation had the effect of preparing me for the progressive traumatic misfortunes that led so many black men to the prison gate. I was prepared for prison. It required only minor psychic adjustments. From the Soledad Brother by George Jackson. There were several guys crying in the holding cell where I was taken after being sentenced. All were black and all had gotten time. The dude with the lightest sentence, a tall, burly guy with greasy hair, was wailing the loudest. He had a measly 5 years, the sentence I'd hoped for, and was boo-hooing like a baby. I wanted to strangle him. We were issued thin mattresses, old, wrinkled jail clothes, and 3 of us were marched upstairs to the sixth floor dormitory cell. When the guard closed and locked the doors behind us, I stood there and scanned my new home. I was in jail, the one place in America that black men rule. A gloomy mass of concrete and steel. It was one large open space that looked like an oversized lion's cage. The largest area was a day room with 2 steel picnic tables. At eye level in front of the tables, an old black and white TV set on a wooden stand mounted to the bars. Across the room in the far corner were 4 fully exposed toilets. Another corner held an open area with 2 doorless shower stalls. Opposite that section was a sleeping area lined with bunk beds like an army barracks. The cell block held about 35 inmates. All of them were black. It felt like I was at the motherland with all those black faces around there. Some guys sat at the table in the day room and watched TV, played cards, and talked quietly. When we entered the cell block, a few inmates glanced up at us, then went back to what they were doing. A few others watched closely in the way that the jailhouse veterans study newcomers. I learned over time that the manner in which a person enters a jail cell provides some essential clues to those already there. Seasoned inmates can tell a lot about a guy just by how he acts and what he does when he first walks in. They can tell if this is his first time in jail or if he's a regular. They can sense whether he's scared to death or fearless. A new guy's demeanor determines who approaches him, when, and how. An inmate walked over to the 3 of us and motioned for us to follow him to the sleeping area. He showed us vacant bunks, then watched while we got settled in. I picked the lower bunk near the corner, flopped down my mattress, and divided it and dived onto it. I stretched out on my back and put my hands behind my head, stared up at the ceiling, and thought about my predicament. I thought, 12 years? I'm never going to make it. I couldn't conceptualize it. Every time I tried to register the length of the sentence, my brain rejected it, spit it back out. I thought again about the trial. The judge had acted like he took it personal that I robbed that place. I understood that was all about. I understood what it was all about. I shot and nearly killed Plaz, a black man, and got a 30-day sentence. I robbed a white business and didn't lay a finger on anybody and got 12 years. I got the message. I'd gotten it all my life. Don't F with white folks. I was startled by a voice nearby. It was a guy who had met us at the door. Yo, man, what you in for? I answered without looking at him. I got a robbery beef. What you rob? A store. Oh, yeah? How much time you get? That was the wrong question. Look, man, I don't feel like going into all that. I turned over on my side with my back facing him. He rose and left to interview the other newcomers. I laid there and stared through the bars at the ugly mustard-colored wall across the corridor. There were several long, narrow windows with the length of the wall. From my bunk, I could see through one window, see the night sky illuminated by thousands of speckled city lights. They were fluorescent street lights and moving headlights from cars going back and forth over the Elizabeth River Tunnel Bridge to Portsmouth. I thought, it'll be 12 years before I go out there again. 12 years. I couldn't believe it. I went to sleep that night wishing I would wake up the next day and come out of this terrible dream. Over the next few days, I noticed that something about this cell block is different from the others I've been in. There was more order to this one. The inmate who greeted me last night before gathered the other newcomers, brought them over to my bunk, and explained the workings of the place. He said the cell block was reserved for motivated inmates. Unlike in a Portsmouth jail, where guys could stay in bed all day and sleep their time away, inmates in this cell block were required to program throughout the day. Inmates who went through the program could earn good time, days subtracted off their sentence for good behavior. It was something jailers to allow help control inmates, to provide an incentive for them to behave. Guys from all over the jail tried to get transferred here because we run the best shop in the house, the inmate boasted. We program hard. I saw inmates working together, filling buckets with water, gathering rags and cleaning detergents. They mopped the floors and cleaned the bars and tables. The place smelled like ammonia. A guy called Chicago ran the cell block. He was a tall, muscular guy with a thick southern accent. He was very articulate. The jailers dressed him by some alias, but the inmates had named him Chicago because that's where he was from. The word was he was a street gang leader who had gotten busted in Norfolk for robbing a bank. Unlike Nutbrain, Charlie Gregg, and me, he was supposedly a black revolutionary who had done it for a cause. Like me, most of the guys in jail had never spent time around a revolutionary before, much less talked to one. We all hated the white man, but few were committed to fighting him in an organized, disciplined way. We had meetings in cell blocks, and when Chicago spoke, everybody sat quietly. He talked about what's going on right and wrong with the cell block. He talked with so much authority that you assumed he should be in charge. When he talked, everybody paid attention, from the hardest nosed thugs to the most bombed out junkies. I learned over time that he knew his stuff. He was well versed on philosophy, politics, and law. He knew how to organize against the system. I'd never seen a black man who could handle white people so well. He spoke to white jailers like he was their equal, like they were keeping him locked up so much that he was letting them detain him for a while. Chicago had real power in jail. When he summoned guards to the cell block, they came. He could have inmates shipped out the cell block at will. He had special arrangements with inmate workers in the cafeteria to get the best food. Anybody less dynamic than Chicago would have been aroused by the guards that night, taken to solitary cell, and given thorough, ass whoopers to mull over. But if they hadn't done that to Chicago, it would have started a riot in jail. There were no whites in our cell blocks. There were so few whites in jail that the administrators were careful about where they placed them. I think the jailers knew it would have been unwise to put whites in our cell block with Chicago around. When he preached about the legacy of slavery, he got inmates so fired up that they wanted to strike out, and whites in the cell block would have been convenient targets. Chicago also directed our daily therapy sessions. The sessions were designed to encourage self improvement, but he used them for more. He talked about the double standard of justice in America, how blacks regularly got big time for petty crimes, and how white boys routinely stole millions and walked. Chicago also rapped about the need for us to challenge inhumane conditions in jail. He tied the two topics together so eloquently that it made me feel like I was a political prisoner rather than a too big stick up man. We also took time in those therapy sessions to talk about ourselves. Each prisoner took turns on the hot seat, where he talked about his background and answered probing questions from other inmates. The object was to get us to look within, to talk honestly about the personality problems and distorted views that landed us in jail. I learned through those sessions that most of the guys in the cell block had grown up in poor area around Church Street, where Shell Shock and I had done most of our stick ups. Many were so poor that they lacked money in their inmate accounts to order toothpaste and other essentials from canteen. They gambled with cigarettes and bartered to get what they need. A lot of them were in jail with small bonds that required only $100 or $200 to get out, but they remained confined for months because they couldn't scrape up chump change from family and friends. Few had made it through high school, and a lot of them were functionally illiterate. The majority of the guys had been arrested for drug related crimes, but the criminal charges ran the gamut from drug dealing to murder to flim flamming. Many of the guys were longtime hustlers who knew each other from the streets and had previously done prison time together. The most popular old head in there was a likable junkie in his early 50s who had been in and out of prison all of his life. His name was Moses Battle. They called him Mo for short. He was an elder statesman of the cell block. Mo Battle came to my bunk one evening after I'd been on the hot seat. He introduced himself and said he was curious to know how someone who had spent a year in college wound up in jail. He called me Young Blood because I was one of the youngest guys on the cell blocks. Young Blood, you say you from Cavalier Manor? Yeah, that's a nice neighborhood. I know some people from Cavalier Manor. We started talking and I became intrigued with Mo Battle as he was with me. Young Blood, you say you been to college? Yeah. He said, I got my GED in the penitentiary. I took some college correspondence courses too. Well spoken and shrewd, Mo Battle was born a teacher who read a lot and loved to share his wisdom with younger guys like me. We spent long hours in the evening sitting on our bunks talking. His favorite subject was philosophy. He saw philosophical meaning in everything, including some of the petty shit that happened in the cell block. If two guys got in a rumble over food or cigarettes, Mo had a theory about why they bumped heads. He theorized a lot about jail guards whom he hated. He said the difference in guards and inmates was so slight that if you took away the guards' uniforms, you couldn't tell them apart. He said the guards were losers with little dick complexes and a serious need to boss somebody, anybody around. One day when one guard, a real knucklehead, came to the block and let an inmate into the cell block, Mo Battle said, look at him. I bet he come in his pants every time he turned those keys. Mo Battle taught me how to play chess. I never been exposed to a game on the street. Like him, the other guys in the cell block who knew how to play had learned on previous trips to prison. They adapted the game to their street perceptions and described tactical maneuvers in their own language. They called the queen the most powerful and versatile piece on the board, the bitch. A guy describing how he was checkmated After losing his queen, would say that the opponent took my bitch and fucked me up. That's why you gotta learn to play with somebody better than the queen. Cause she was not my strongest piece. I could play with her, but yeah. Mo Battle taught me chess by explaining its philosophical parallels to life. You can understand the game of chess if you understand the game of life, and vice versa, he said. In life, the person who plots his course and thinks ahead before he acts wins. It's the same with chess. It is. One day I made a move to capture a pawn of his and gave Mo Battle an opening that took a valuable piece. He smiled and said, "You can tell a lot about a person by the way he plays chess. People who think small in life tend to devote a lot of energy to capturing pawns. They do. The least valuable piece on the board. They think they're playing to win, but they're not. But people who think big tend to go straight for the king or the queen, which wins you the game." I never forgot that. Most guys I knew, myself included, spent their entire lives chasing pawns. The problem was we thought we were going after kings. Mo Battle also pointed out the racial symbolism in chess and how it reflected society. The white pieces always move first, giving them an immediate advantage over the black pieces, just like in life. The most important thing that Mo Battle taught me was chess was a game of consequences. He said that just as in life, there are consequences for every move you make in chess. Don't make a move without first weighing your potential consequences, he said, because if you don't, you have no control over the outcome. I never looked at life like that. I had seldom weighed the consequences of anything until after I'd done it. I'd do something crazy and then brace myself for the outcome, whatever it happened to be. I had no control over the outcome and no control over my life. When I thought about it, that was a hell of a stupid way to live. But on the chessboard, I eventually saw that I could predict and, more importantly, control the outcome if I considered the consequences of moves before making them. That gave me a whole new way of looking at things. After Mo Battle shared his philosophy, I got hooked on the game. Over the months, I got a fair enough command of chess to beat most of the other guys and give Mo Battle a run for his money. I was fascinated by Mo Battle's range of knowledge. He knew a little about something about everything. It made me wonder why he wasn't doing more with his life than just being a jailhouse sage. After I got to know him better, I asked him about the contradiction I saw in him. "Yo, Mo, if you got all this knowledge, why you ain't running the country?" As always, he came at me straight. "Cuz, young blood, I'm one of those dudes that got all the knowledge in the world while I'm locked up, but can't execute when I get out." Facts. "Why can't you execute?" The sparkle in Mo Battle's eyes dim. "Cuz, man, I'm a junkie." By his own admission, he was a slave to heroin, which he and other junkies in the cell blocks pronounced as heroin. He had already written off life as a failure. "I've already blown it, young blood. If I had gone down a different road, I think I could have been a college professor or a lawyer. But I got dealt a different hand. I'm a junkie, and I got to have that heroin." He told me he had picked himself up and made many new starts after getting out the penitentiary, but he'd fallen down as often. The frequency of those falls convinced him that the pull of heroin was stronger than his will to resist it. He said that he had a loving wife and a family who supported him during his trips to prison and through drug treatment programs, but he'd been more loyal to heroin than to them. Most of the criminal charges he caught throughout the years were either for possession of the drug or ripping off some people to get drug money. It's like a woman in love with a man who she knows is no good for her, but who makes her love her so well that she can't let him go, even if he drags her into the gutter. That heroin makes me love her, and I can't let it go. He got his break from addiction when he went to prison. He seemed almost grateful. It gave him a chance to dry out, to read, think, flirt with all the possibilities of what could have become. He and other junkies in the cell blocks were taken to the dispensary every day to get their doses of methadone, which helped ease their withdrawal pains. He'd always say to me after return, "Don't be like me, man. Young blood, you got a chance, man." I seriously doubted he was right about that. Ordinarily, after being sentenced, guys shipped away to some prison, but the system was overcrowded that we in the cell block had to wait for openings at prison compounds. I spent 6 miserable months in Norfolk jail, and after a while, the days and nights merged into one continuous run, measured by the meals we ate and the routines we followed. For me, the toughest days were weekends when I normally would be out partying. Most inmates were subdued on the weekend because the weekends made them long more for the streets. I lie on my bunk and listen to the tunes playing on the portable radio in the cell block and wonder what was going on in the free world. The singer Minnie Riperton had a hit song out that depressed me. She sing, "Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful." My heart sank as I thought about Liz every time I heard that song. It seemed that the DJs played it 50 times a day just to mess with me. I marked time and kept up with what was going on outside by letters I received from Liz. I learned that a popular guy in Portsmouth named Sweet Wolf got 40 years. Two guys I grew up with got life sentences for robbery and murder. Shane got into a fight at Nick's pool hall downtown and went back and shot out the windows. Cuda caught a robbery charge. It seemed the guys that I knew were going to the penitentiary and getting killed, like there was nothing to it. Charlie, Greg, and Nutbrain, who went to trial a month or so after me, got 8 years. They got less time because I was the gunman. They were sent to different floors in Norfolk jail. We sent messages to each other through inmate hall boys, approved the travel throughout the building. Sometimes we paid inmates and cafeteria workers cigarettes to deliver messages when we came through for child. Despite the many ways I learned to keep busy, time dragged slowly. I spent much of that time in denial, believing that something would happen to get me out, that some high level white people somewhere were going to review my case and realize that the punishment was too harsh for the crime. I had Liz and others write the judge and even the governor of Virginia asking them to reconsider my case, but the time passed and nothing happened. When reality hit me, I settled in to do my time. I was lying on my bunk on Wednesday, flipping through a magazine, when a guard appeared at the cell. "McCall, front and center, you got a visitor." I jumped up and rushed to the sink for a glimpse in the mirror and went through the open gate. The guard escorted me to a tiny visiting room. When I stepped inside, I saw Liz and my parents on the other side of a thick glass partition that separated us. Bampoose, my grandmother, appeared from behind them and waved at me. I smiled, waved back, and took a seat between several other inmates who were talking quietly through telephones to family members and other loved ones. I lifted the receiver and spoke to Liz. "Hey, baby, how you doing?" "I'm all right. Monroe is okay. Everybody's doing fine. How about you?" "I'm fine." Actually, I was annoyed. Liz picked up on it and said, "What's the matter?" I asked, "Why did y'all bring Papoose? I didn't want her to see me in here like this." She shrugged her shoulders. "I know, but she wanted to come, so we couldn't say no." "Yeah, I understand." We talked a few more minutes, then my parents took turns on the telephone. Finally, my stepfather helped Papoose to the seat. I'd only been locked up a few months, but it seemed like Papoose had aged a lot since I had last seen her. She looked frail and brittle. She put the phone to her face, smiled weakly, and said, "Hey, boy, how you doing?" "I'm fine, Papoose. How about you?" "All right. They treating you good in here?" "Yeah, the food ain't great, but I'm all right." As I spoke, I felt myself choking inside. In all the other previous weekly visits from family and friends, I've been able to put on a strong face, but the sight of Papoose weakened me. I was ashamed for her to see. No doubt. I just seen your comment, Living. My bad. Um, I was ashamed for her to see me in jail. For all our lives, Bampoose had quietly set an example of hard work and sacrifice in the family. In her dignified way, she'd always been there to lend support to everybody and had done what she could to help. Everybody wanted Bampoose to think well of them, and I was no exception. There was a song that reminded me of her. It was a tune by the Spinners called Sadie. That was Bamboo's first name, and it seemed as if the song was written expressly about her. The song was about a woman who provided strength and support in her family. I thought about Bampoos whenever I heard it. Sadie, don't you know we love you, sweet Sadie? Place no one above you, sweet Sadie. It also bothered me to think that with her rapidly advancing frailty, she might not live to see me get out. When our 10 minutes were up, I felt relieved. That was the one time I was glad to get out the visiting room. The other times, I looked forward to those Wednesday visits like children look forward to Christmas. On visiting days, the whole cell block seemed to come alive. We played the radio louder and talked more. Guys waiting for visit paced near the cell block entrance. Others climbed onto horizontal supports to the bars to look through the window, which overlooked the visitors' parking. I couldn't help noticing how much they looked like caged monkeys climbing the bars like that. Over time, though, I craved the sight of outdoors so bad that I climbed too. If you climbed high enough, you could see visitors drive up and get out their car and walk in the building. There was something else outdoors that caught my eye. In another parking lot not far from the visitors, lawyers and other people on official business left their cars while they came to the jail. There was an interesting contrast between the two lots. Most of the folks who parked in the visitors' lots coming to see inmates were black. Those parking in the business lot were white. I could distinguish the lawyers. They drove up in sleek Porsches, Mercedes, and BMWs and got out in their expensive suit carrying briefcases. I realized that white criminal lawyers had created a cottage industry supported almost exclusively by blacks. They built lavish lifestyles by profiting from our despair, and we cooperated fully, played right into their hands. I never thought about it until then. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you on TikTok. Uh, I had known that with Chicago in charge, there was always a possibility of trouble. And sure enough, the kettle blew. Fed up with the deteriorating conditions, Chicago called for a boycott of activities until some of the problems were addressed. Under his instructions, no one would go into or out of the cell block for anything until we got some results. We drafted a list of demands that had to be met. Concrete steps had to be taken to ease overcrowding, improve the quality of our food, and give us prisoners more time to research our cases in the jail laws library. Chicago had requested a meeting with the jail administrator, but the administrator refused to meet with us. Then, in a show of force, a battalion of guards in helmets and riot gear stood menacingly outside the cell block entrance, brandishing clubs. The floor captain called out to the inmates bunched up near the entrance. You all going to cooperate, or do we have to come in and get you? Chicago, of course, spoke for us. What do you think we're going to do? You got to come in here and get us. And don't forget, you got to take some to get some. When it became clear that the inmates were solidly unified, the floor captain tried the old divide and conquer routine. I realize that some of you fellas probably don't want to be in with the troublemakers. We're going to give you a chance to separate yourself from this mess so you don't get hurt and damage your chances of getting out of here. All those who want to go to another cell block can step forward now, and we'll transfer you, no questions asked. For a long moment, there was silence. Then several inmates stepped forward and walked through the cage leading to the door. In my heart, I wanted to leave too. I was afraid that if I took part in the ride, I'd lose my good time or blow my chances of making first parole. But I couldn't bring myself to punk out. It just wasn't in me. So I stood there ready to go down with everybody else. When inmates who had chosen when the inmates who had chosen had left, the guards readied themselves to storm the cell block. They prepared tear gas guns to shoot into the place. Following Chicago's instruction, we all dampened towels and wrapped them around our faces to protect us from the gas. Just when it appeared the rumble was about to start, the administrator appeared. He pretended that he had just learned of the disturbance and asked what was going on. Chicago spoke. You know what's going on. We requested a meeting with you to talk about our grievances, and you sent your henchmen instead. That's fine, he told us, but I can't have you taking over my jail. Get some representatives together and come down to my office and talk. We picked Chicago, Mo Battle, and a few others. They left instructions that if they didn't return by the day's end, we should tear the place up. With that done, the standoff ended. As a result of the meeting, some of the demands were addressed. Inmates were reshuffled to ease overcrowding. Jail officials claimed to have improved the food, but I saw no noticeable difference. The most significant change was our increased ability to use the jail's law library. At least once a week now, inmate representatives were allowed to go there for a few hours and do legal research for themselves and other inmates. Because I was considered educated, I was among the representatives chosen to do research. Of course, the jail administrator won the final battle. Under the guise of easing overcrowding, he, he changed the makeup of the cell block until there was almost an entirely different group of people. I was sent to another cell block down the hall. I didn't know what happened to Chicago, Mo Battle, and the others after that. I never saw or heard of them again. All right. Let me wrap up after this. Chapter 18, Native Son. One night, the familiar sound of jangling keys echoed outside of my new cell block. I looked up and saw two white men walking briskly down the hallway towards the entrance. One was a jail guard. The other, walking a step or two ahead, was a tall, influential-looking man who appeared to be in his 50s. Wearing an expensive suit and a white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, the man looked like he had just ended a long, tiring business day. When the two reached the entrance, the guard opened the door, let the man inside, then closed and locked the gate. The man stood there for a long time, sighed wearily, and scanned the room. By now, everybody in the cell block had turned from what they were doing to study the newcomer. There were a few other whites in the cell block, but he was different from anybody I'd seen come through those gates. Everything in the man's dress and his manner suggested that he came from upper reaches of a world I had only read and talked about. He had that sonnered, pampered look about him and seemed to be the kind of white man who was unaccustomed to being inconvenient, let alone locked up. Apparently unnerved by the prisoner's glares, the newcomer turned around, leaned his head against the cell bar, and stared out into the empty hallway. The guard returned minutes later, handed him a mattress and a set of crumpled jail clothes. The white inmate walked over and steered the new man to an empty bunk. They chatted quietly a moment, then the inmate walked away, leaving him there to get settled in. I learned later from the inmate that my initial take on the newcomer was on the money. An executive at some high-powered business firm, the man had been busted for a white-collar ripoff. He sat in his bunk and looked around, bewildered. I could tell by the tortured expression on his face that this was his worst nightmare. For him, the world had turned upside down and inside out. Black people were in the majority, and they ran things. White people were in the minority, and they were oppressed. Clearly, he had never dreamed he'd spend a minute even passing through our world. He stayed anchored to his bunk the remainder of the night and part of the next day. He was still glued there that afternoon when we gathered in the day room to begin our group therapy session. Just as we were about to start, a guy called Titty Head His head was shaped like a woman's breast. Shout to the newcomer, yo, Mr. Executive, I know you ain't used to being told what to do, but you got to bring your pompous ass out here just like everybody else. I know that's right. The man's pasty white face turned beet red. With all eyes on him, he rose and walked slowly out of the sleeping area and took a seat at one of the steel tables. We started the session, sending inmates to the hot seat. After several guys had spoken, Titty Head turned to the newcomer. Okay, Mr. Executive, it's your turn to bare your soul. I knew what Titty Head was doing. Everybody knew. He was taking a rare chance to strike back at somebody who represented the very system that made his life hell. This was a once in a lifetime shot, a chance to get even, and he intended to milk it for all it was worth. We asked the man a lot of offensive, deeply personal questions, and he responded, trying to hide his resentment at having to answer to people he probably considered beneath him. Tittyhead, in particular, hit him with a lot of questions framed more in the form of accusations. I bet you dog I bet you dog niggas out on your job every chance you get, don't you? Through the grilling, the few other whites in the cell block kept quiet, taking care not to jeopardize their own fragile safety. I sat watching, enjoying the hell out of it, loving the sight of a powerful white man squirming in the clutches of a powerful black. I suspected he felt indicted by his whiteness as never before, and I hope he felt that in the moment the same way I'd felt for much of my life, like an alien in a hostile world where he couldn't win, like the victim of reoccurring injustices against which there were no appeals. We kept the newcomer on that hot seat and fucked with his head for hours. When the meeting ended, he retreated to his bunk, humiliated, and sulked the rest of the day. The following day, the brothers rode him some more, on the hot seat and off. They looked him up and down in the shower like he was a piece of shit and barked orders at him, reminding him constantly that his life was now subject. Thanks for joining on TikTok. I appreciate you. To a whole new set of rules. After a few days, the newcomer got out on bond. When the guard called his name and yelled, "Pack your bags," he nearly flew to the gate and didn't even bother to gather most of his belongings. As he left, he looked through the bars one final time at the 30 or so black men eyeing him. His lips parted as though he was about to say something, but he kept quiet and walked away. Whites in general call hell in jail, especially in my new cell block, which was less disciplined and far rowdier than the other one I'd been in. White junkies whose drug dealings had often taken them in inner city spots did well because they grown comfortable around blacks. But that was less case with those sheltered, smug whites, such as the businessman we just put through hell. They were they wore their racial fears and prejudices on their sleeves. At night, when the lights went out, those whites who couldn't hold their own were harassed sexually and otherwise by the wolves. One morning, I woke up to and saw a young, long-haired white guy sitting on his bunk, staring dejectedly at the floor. His lips were swollen, and his eyes were black and puffy from apparent thumping he had taken the night before. He was taken to the dispensary, then placed on protective custody. I heard through the rumor mill that he had been raped and beaten by a few wolves while everyone else was asleep. Eventually, several brothers were fingered and charged with the rape. Those and similar incidents involving whites reminded me that our little saying in cavalier manner rang true everywhere, especially in jail. Payback is a mother. All right, family, we'll stop right there. It is 8 o'clock. We did our hour. Let me see. Yeah, that's perfect. The next one is long, so we can start with that. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you don't have to deal with rain like we might be doing this weekend. If you got some time, join us on Tuesday where we will continue our discussions on what we talk about. emotional intelligence. And if you can't make it on Tuesday, then join us again on Thursday as we continue book club. We continue reading. What is it? Makes me want to holler. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your support. Remember the affirmations for your sacral. I mean, not your sacral, but for your solar plexus. Breathing exercise 444. And I hope to see you next week, family. Peace. I knew you weren't going to work. Do, do, do. Do, do, do.